So, like I said, I'm Sam Howard. I'm a CX researcher at MX. I've been a CX researcher for at least a few years now. But I've worked a lot in experience design, UX research, and business communications over the years. MX, just a quick intro to what MX is. MX is a B2B financial technology company. It's been around for 7 or 9 years, I forget which. And we help financial institutions get access to their data, clean up their data, make it usable for them and their users. And we also provide money management tools like mobile app and stuff like budgeting, like that. So our overall goal as a company, which aligns with my sentiments as a CX researcher, is to help the world become financially strong. So we're just about helping people. And before I get started, I wanted to try to define what CX is. Not necessarily everyone's familiar with what it's about. At least the way I see CX is that it tends to be more focused on client user touchpoint monitoring, enabling better customer journey. And UX tends to be a little bit more focused on, or a lot more focused on, product experience. But CX has to be pretty aware of what's happening with UX research, even employee experience and brand experience research, because all of it affects the entire customer journey. So it's a really fun place to be. I love being involved and in touch with all the different types of research and trying to make sense of it and use it to figure out how to make the entire customer journey better. So let's jump into my topic. So since I've been at MX for about 6 months now, I've been spending a lot of time on projects that are focused on setting up a system, content, or processes that will enable MX to do better CX, UX, and market research. And we want ourselves to be empowered to better address and see the most critical CX needs. And one of which is to make the value of our products and services totally transparent and accessible to us, our clients, and their users. So the key pain points that we discovered, that the people on my team and myself have discovered already, like even before I got here, was that clients are sometimes unsure of how much value our products or services are creating. And our customer-facing people sometimes struggle to manage expectations that were set up by the sales team at the beginning. We don't know what was tracked, whether or not we're providing, whether or not we're meeting expectations that were set in the beginning. And so this is something that we really need to try to figure out how to address. And a couple more key points is that we have a general sense of who we want to market to, but we want a much more granular and specific targeted way of marketing to clients on who needs what type of product or service and at what point in their development, right? We also want to be able to be more, along with that, be more prescriptive versus reactive to client needs. So go in there with confidence and say, hey, we know exactly what you need. So the question that came out of all of this is that kind of encompasses what we're trying to answer or address, is how do we achieve cross-departmental alignment around how to measure and prove value to our customers? And then the answer, which is basic but not easy to accomplish, is we have to create a scalable and adaptive system that enables us to tie client business objectives to solutions and tie the effects of those solutions to outcomes that our clients consider as valuable outcomes. No big deal, right? But if we can do it, we can prove value, not just throw out guesstimates, but actually prove it. In our research, we we can actually do a lot more research and identify patterns and what business objectives tend to be, that we're accomplishing for clients more successfully than others. It'll help us know how to pivot our strategy across the board in terms of what we want to deliver and what products we want to focus on. And if we can also do this, we can create database client personas, right? We'll have all this information about all of our clients and be able to apply it to future clients. So the key requirements of kind of getting the system set up is number one, and one that we've made a lot of headway on, enabling consistent documentation of business objectives over time. And then the second thing is to establish relationships and dependencies between business objectives as well as products and services and track their implementation. And the third thing is we need to establish all of the success metrics associated with each of our products or services, and then make sure that we've started tracking those if we can. And then, of course, at the end, we want to be able to tie all of those success metrics to actual outcomes like growth and retention that executives are really concerned about, and that can seal the deal in having people renew clients with us, as well as obviously provide value for those clients. So I'm going to go through and talk about each of these requirements real quick and just show you what we've done so far. So the problem, like I mentioned, was, so here's what happened is, like any good CX researcher, the moment I came into MX, I was like, well, give me some data, and so they shared all of their business objectives data in Salesforce with me. They had about 400 something entries, went through it, did an affinity analysis, and quickly realized that how people thought, like what people thought of a business objective was very inconsistent. People had different definitions, and that makes it really impossible to do research or figure out what actually our clients' business objectives are. So we've been working on creating a standardized paradigm for defining those. So what we discovered through our efforts is that we could break it out into these different areas. So some business objectives that they had written down as business objectives were actually a larger strategy, and kind of like a pillar, a strategy pillar. And underneath those strategies, you have any number of specific business objective categories. And then you also have tactics, which are sort of like the treatment. So someone has an objective, you say, you want to get this done. Okay, well, here's our treatment. And then we have these products or services that help us do that. And then tasks are what should be included in a project plan, right? Like we're going to do this by the end of Q4, right? That sort of thing. And then, of course, metrics. And you need to define what types of metrics there are out there and which are going to be easier to tie to money. So primary metrics you can tie to money. Indicator metrics such as like NPS or engagement, those are a little bit harder to tie to money. And then, of course, outcomes, which is, where the rubber meets the road for stock, for shareholders, right? And so we went through the process of defining each of these different types of categories, what their relationships were to each other, and coming up with examples for them. And this is going to make our training groups' jobs easier much later, right? Because we've defined all these. And then we came up, like I was saying earlier, we came up with different business objective categories. So we have actionable insights, aggregation, clean data, and we came up with definitions and examples of each, again, for enabling our customer-facing folks to be able to quickly identify, like, okay, my customer said this, I can fit it in this category, and then I can mark that down. I can document that. And then if all of our client-facing people start using these lists with all of our clients, everyone's using the same terminology. And the same thing goes with metrics, right? So these are the different types of primary metrics that we can actually tie to money, assuming we're tracking them. These are different types of indicator metrics that we could probably track, and here are the different type of outcome metrics. Again, all with definitions and examples. And so what we're in the very early stages of doing right now is implementing this in Salesforce so that there's an opportunity for customer-facing people in their conversations with clients to be able to, like we were saying, document what the strategy is, what the objectives are. Those will be tied to the products that we sell to them, right? And all of that data is going to be tied together and just make research around business objectives and how well we're achieving them just way easier. So the second thing that we needed to do was to establish relationships and dependencies. So the problem was that it's not exactly clear which documents needed to be implemented before another product would actually work, right? There's a lot of tribal knowledge around that. Like a lot of people doing it and understand that, but it wasn't necessarily publicly known, especially to customer-facing people. So the solution is to get with stakeholders and start mapping them. And so we went through the process of going through different types of business objectives and saying like, okay, well, in order to achieve clean data, you first need to aggregate it. And then that leads to data reliability and achieving your actionable insights objective. And there's all of these objectives that are downstream of achieving these business objectives here, right? And so we established those relationships and we've been documenting them. So what precedes a particular business objective and what follows it, and what products is that associated with? So for this particular product batch, right, it's all about the primary business objective of data access and agility. Again, enabling us to tie everything together and all of its relationships. So the next requirement was to, again, establish success metrics. A lot of these weren't necessarily documented. There's a lot of ad hoc efforts to produce success metrics for clients. It's not like we weren't doing it, but some of these potential success metrics weren't being tracked or documented or at least standardized. And so we've been going through the process of documenting and prioritizing which metrics we need to track and start actually doing it if we haven't been already. And so for each product, we've identified specific metrics that assess success. Sorry about that. What metric category they're in, whether or not we're going to need to surface that to clients, what stage it's in terms of its development to be able to like distribute and access, and how important it is, right? And that'll help us spin up projects around what we do there. And then the fourth requirement is, this is one that we're the least developed on, because like doing the first three things is really going to be critical for making this possible. But the product team in particular has, these needs have always existed. So they've been working on solutions to try to get data to clients that will help them see the value. But the problem is that, again, like I was saying earlier, some of it is ad hoc or unavailable to everyone else. And so one of the solutions is to give clients access to their success metrics, and then for our client-facing people to use them in their quarterly business reviews and in contract renegotiations with those clients. So this is an example of a dashboard, something that we can provide for clients, like what's the financial health of your users, what's their spending behavior, what's the engagement level with products that you've bought with us, like the mobile app or Pulse, a different tool. And these are the sorts of data that we're trying to surface more and in a more consumable way to our clients. In addition, we've already started some efforts to put case studies together, which salespeople can use to say, hey, if you're a business just like this, we made them this amount of money, we saw all this success. with them. Again, if people in our company start tracking all these business objectives and metrics, and we can associate all that data, it's going to make creating case studies super easy. And we'll be able to share those more quickly and widely, depending on the unique use case. So yeah, that, and some other things that we're doing related to this project is that we're gathering product pain points, both for the client and user, the products are supposed to address, product objectives, product hypotheses. This is going to allow, particularly our UX researcher, Mac, to do more research around our products to see whether or not they're doing what we hypothesize they're doing. And then, and how well, right? And we're also creating risk and status assessments that we can use for, again, early stage consulting purposes, to be like, hey, depending on how you've answered these questions in this assessment, we kind of have a sense of where you are, what technology you need, what products will help you at what stage of your journey to try to create a better customer experience for your users. And so those are some other things that are coming out of this whole business objectives effort. But yeah, that's what I've been working on. It's been super fun. And I hope that was not totally boring for all of you. It's super interesting for me. But it's a big, long, huge project that is accomplished in a measurement of years rather than like weeks and months. It's a long process, but once you get it done, it can have a huge effect on the effectiveness of the organization. And most importantly, improve the customer experience. So that's it for me.